Quality sleep is essential. That's why the Sleep Number Smart Bed is designed for your ever-evolving sleep needs. Need a bed that's firmer or softer on either side? Helps you sleep at a comfortable temperature? Sleep Number Smart Beds let you individualize your comfort, so you sleep better together. J.D. Power ranks Sleep Number number 1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in-store. And now, save 50% on the Sleep Number Limited Edition Smart Bed for a limited time. For J.D. Power 2023 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Ciara Revan, and this is the Sunday 7.
On today's episode of the award-winning Sunday 7, we find out about Boeing's Starliner and why it didn't launch. Will Guyatt might have good news for crypto fans. We hear about a potentially groundbreaking cure for deafness, and it turns out Wales might be trying to tell us something. But first, on this day in 2004, a major archaeological discovery was made as the Library of Alexandria was unveiled by Zahi Hawass, the president of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. The facility, which included 13 lecture halls, was unlike anything ever discovered before on the Greco-Roman site, and it's believed to have been the birthplace of Western science. Boeing really hasn't been having a great time recently, with numerous safety incidents, including doors blowing out mid-flight, and now new claims over safety from whistleblowers over alarming lapses in quality. So it's probably not the best time for the company to debut its new crewed spaceflight vehicle, the Starliner. Boeing and SpaceX both received funding from NASA to build a crewed spaceship, which would see astronauts return to the moon and potentially travel even further in years to come. It was a race SpaceX won, delivering multiple launches while Boeing remained in the lab. But last week was supposed to see Boeing's triumphant launch of a crewed flight on the new Starliner. Boeing has a long history with NASA, involved in the construction of the space shuttles and also an essential part of the International Space Station. Dana Weigel is the International Space Station Program Manager at NASA, and she says Boeing has been crucial to the ISS success.
They are our primary sustainer, and they're responsible for safety of all the equipment they built, plus integrated safety across our entire spacecraft. And so the processes that we're talking about that we use together for human spaceflight have been around. We've had the vehicle now for 25 years, crewed for 23 years.
At a pre-launch press conference, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson was asked specifically about whether or not NASA was concerned that safety and build quality issues in the airline division was something that the agency should be worried about.
They have done it without a hitch, that this is a clean spaceship and it's ready to launch. And I can tell you from NASA's point of view, we don't launch until it's ready. The
Starliner with crew was due to launch on Monday night, but 2 hours before ignition, the mission was scrubbed. The whole rocket has had to be removed from the launch pad to facilitate a repair on a key valve, and the next available launch date is the 17th of May. Tory Bruno is the president and CEO of the United Launch Alliance, and he says that they're not too worried, but with a crew on board, they're always extra cautious.
What occurred, as was said, is that we have a mechanical valve that vents the ullage pressure on the lock, so it's venting gas. And every now and again, in rare occasions, a valve like that can get into a position where it's just off the seat, its temperature, its stiffness, everything is just right, and it'll flutter, or it'll buzz in this case, and cycle. What you would typically do is activate the solenoid that forces the valve closed, cycling the valve, if you will, and then you turn that off and you let it return, and it almost always stops. It has in fact stopped. Once we had the crew off, we cycled the valve and it stopped buzzing.
It seems like you can't put on a podcast these days without someone moaning and groaning about the threat of AI, and now it's coming to take our jobs. But this week it seems as though Google DeepMind have actually found a way to use AI as a tool for good, when it comes to science at least. Our very own DeepMind, the Smart 7's tech guru Will Guyatt, joins us to tell us more. So Will, what is Google DeepMind and what are they up to with AI?
The team at Google DeepMind have been working on AI since 2010, long before most of us got on the ChatGPT hype train. They've been working to build and create AI models that can help solve the world's problems, not just write you a knockoff A-level essay. And now the brains at DeepMind have made a potentially huge leap forward with one of their AI models, as its AlphaFold program can now accurately predict how proteins behave in life. That sounds like a really lofty phrase, but it promises to reveal how huge areas of life actually works, the real biology that underpins our very existence. This has the potential to speed up huge breakthroughs in everything from new antibiotics through to new materials we can make stuff with, and stronger crops that cope with the harsher conditions our planet now experiences. That's quite a lot of stuff.
This is pretty dramatic stuff. Are they saying they can model both diseases and treatments?
Well, yes, they say they can now predict how proteins react and potentially break down with increasing accuracy. They say it will help them test theories before scientists go into the lab to test them, something that speeds up this process hugely.
In an equally dramatic plot twist, there was good news for crypto investors this week as well, at least for those who thought they'd lost everything when FTX collapsed. So what's happened, Will?
As if the world of cryptocurrency wasn't enough of a rollercoaster, it now appears that nearly all of those impacted by this dramatic collapse of a financial exchange will get their investments back with a little bit of interest. Essentially, the wide range of assets and investments that have been acquired by the company, including a manor house here in the UK, are being sold off, and they will make more money than the company currently owes. So far, 98% of investors in the company who had put in less than $50,000 will get 118% of their investment back. I'm not very good with numbers, but that's a huge result for most of the people and businesses who invested in the company.
If everyone is getting their money back, why is Sam Bankman-Fried in jail for 25 years?
Because FTX has essentially been able to make back more than the suggested $8 billion that Sam Bankman-Fried had euphemistically borrowed from customer accounts, the company has seen its assets grow. Bankman-Fried still broke a ton of laws by using company funds as his own piggy bank. One US attorney called it the biggest fraud in American history. And if that wasn't enough, in a new interview with Puck News, Sam Bankman-Fried has suggested that he swapped trading cryptocurrencies for beans and rice, which he buys in prison and trades with fellow inmates.
It's been a while since Apple did anything exciting with iPads, but this week saw some new releases that seem to be generating quite a bit of excitement. What's new, Will?
In many ways, the iPad has been Apple's yesterday's news. The line hasn't received an update in almost 2 years, and while most of us were expecting this to have the usual kind of tweaks in this announcement, Apple put the focus back on the expensive iPad Pro. These start around £1,000 here in the UK, and it's going to make them the first device to receive a whole new generation of its mainline processor. The new M4 isn't the motorway that practically goes past my front door from London to Wales, but it's the same processor line that typically goes into its laptops and computers. This leads to many of us speculating whether Apple might try to encourage people to go for one of these high-end tablets rather than one of their computers, because it's essentially as powerful, and some suggest it may soon run the same operating system as their computers.
They also managed to start a row with Hugh Grant over the commercial. That's a bit unexpected, isn't it?
Apple put out an ad to promote the iPad Pro that many felt was unwittingly dystopian because it literally crushed musical instruments, art, and seemingly human creativity into a hydraulic press. Hugh accused the tech giant of the destruction of the human experience. What Apple really wanted to do was show off the fact you can do a ton of really creative and quite cool things with an iPad Pro. Rather than deciding this was just a mistimed or tone-deaf ad from Apple, some continued to lay it on thick, suggesting the company had become the business it had never wanted to be, evil big tech. Apple themselves shoved the ad into the crusher, pulling it late Thursday night, saying sorry for the upset it had caused.
Still to come at the Sunday 7, there's good news for parents about allergies and bad news for river swimmers. As a parent, having a child with a severe allergy can be a real nightmare, particularly common substances like nuts or dairy. But a trial that is underway across 5 NHS hospitals is starting to show some positive early results as it gradually exposes children with severe allergies to the food that causes the issues, with the aim of building a tolerance over time. 5-year-old Charlie, who has a severe milk allergy, appeared on GMB this week with his mum to talk about how well the process is going.
At the moment, he's on 30 mils a day. So when we had, prior to the updosing, you have to have a food challenge at the hospital, which identifies the threshold at which he reacts fairly severely. So his threshold was 3 mils, where he had quite a bad reaction in hospital. It's in a controlled environment. So he's having 30 mils daily and he's absolutely fine.
The UK trial is funded by the Natasha Allergy Research Foundation, which was founded by the parents of Natasha Ednan Laparos, who died in 2016 after she had a severe reaction to a sesame seed baked into a takeaway baguette. It's not the only trial either, with the US Food and Drug Administration approving the limited use of asthma drug Xolair to treat severe food allergies. Dr. Sharon Chinthrajah is the acting director of the Stanford University Allergy and Asthma Research Centre, who is running the trial. She says 2/3 of patients on the drug developed a much better tolerance for foods like peanuts.
Food allergy patients are making allergic antibodies, and Xolair targets these allergic antibodies and acts like a sponge to take them out of circulation.
The government got a report card this week from the Office of Environmental Protection, and it didn't make for pleasant reading. The OEP is a statutory body set up to keep a close eye on environmental standards since the UK exited the European Union. The report was pretty damning, describing the government's efforts as lacking detail, commitment and suitable funding. Charlie Watson from River Action UK says that the government's claims on pollution just won't wash.
It's a devastating vote of no confidence in the government's plans. I mean, we've just heard a statement from the government saying that they've done more than anybody to clean up this rivers. It is simply not true. I mean, if you read this report, point after point highlights how plans are not in place, how there is no effective timescale or credible timeline to implement these measures. But most importantly, the single biggest takeout I see in this report is that we are just not funding environmental protection. There needs to be a huge allocation of cash to clean up the rivers. We cannot just keep cutting back on environmental protection, cutting the budgets of environmental protection agencies and allowing this state to continue. It is a disgrace. We are the dirty man of Europe.
Dame Glenys Stacey is the chair of the OEP, and she says that currently only 16% of the UK's rivers meet what's called a good ecological standard. She says it's not an issue in terms of legal framework, it's purely an issue about the way government has approached the problem and a lack of funding. We hear a lot about sewage's discharges, but Dame Glenys says there are more issues than just sewage.
Pollution from agriculture is a real problem, and also runoff from roads and urban areas. And there's also concerns about the presence of chemicals in our waters from industry, pharmaceuticals, insecticides and personal care products. So as well as the established problems, there are now some high-risk pollutants on the horizon, and really government's thinking about those needs to develop. It's at an early stage at the moment. So we are overloading our rivers, in short, and we're not doing enough to clean them up.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, a breakthrough gene therapy brings sound to a deaf child, and Wales have something to say.
Right after this.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Welcome back.
It may seem unlikely, but summer is coming, and that means plenty of bright sunlight and potential exposure to dangerous radiation. And while you may think of using sunscreen if you're heading to the beach, a UK cancer charity is keen to get the message across that you need to think about sun protection all the time, particularly those who play sports or work outdoors. Michelle Baker is CEO of the Melanoma Fund, and she says they've put together a 2-hour course aimed at sports leaders and outdoor professionals. She says there are some important things to remember when it comes to sun exposure.
A tan is not a healthy thing. If you're working with people outdoors, you need to lead by example. So understanding the importance of sun protection, understanding how to use it, when to use it, understanding that if it's a cloudy day, that you still need sun protection, and passing that on to people, especially children. If you're sporting a tan, what's that saying about, your practices and how you're influencing children? So the most important thing, I think, is the leading by example, making sure coaches understand their responsibility around sun protection.
For those who've been diagnosed with skin cancer, there's good news on the horizon as a new treatment has just been approved for those who have melanoma that haven't responded to existing treatments. Dr. Thach-Giao Truong is an oncologist at the Cleveland Clinic and says the cell-based treatment can offer a new option.
We feel there's great hope for where melanoma treatment is today. Because of these new treatments, melanoma has led the way in improving survival for cancer at large by 20%.
Opal Sandy was born deaf, but now thanks to a groundbreaking gene therapy treatment, she's now beginning to be able to hear and is even beginning to speak. The 18-month-old is part of a trial running in the UK, the US and Spain, which sees patients treated to replace faulty DNA that in her case led to inherited deafness. Sandy and her parents from Oxfordshire say it was terrifying to have their child in the trial, but they're delighted with the life-changing results. Consultant paediatrician at Addenbrooke Hospital, Professor Richard Brown, says the potential for gene therapy is enormous.
The lovely thing about this particular condition as a model for where gene therapy should be safe and effective is that the anatomy is absolutely perfect. So the only problem is that the inner ear doesn't talk to the nerve that takes the sound signal to the brain. So by using gene therapy, we can put the working gene into the inner ear, and that means that the signal will start to flow again. So as we've seen with Opal, it really is effective, and because we can just deliver it just to that tiny little area in her inner ear, then it's very safe. This gives me great hope that because we've seen such good results that we may be able to see the beginning of real genomic medicine where we can offer cures for those disorders.
We're all familiar with the whale song, the haunting underwater sound of the ocean's largest mammals communicating with each other across the deep. But it turns out whales are not just singers, they also have a phonetic alphabet, or at least sperm whales do. Have a listen. Sperm whales can grow to about 60 feet long and have the largest brain of any animal. And those clicks represent communication between the whales. So using statistical analysis and AI, scientists were able to discern clear patterns, and these bursts of clicks, known as codas, appear to have real importance when it comes to communicating. Associate Professor Jacob Andreas at MIT is one of the scientists who has been studying what the whales are up to and how they compare to human communications.
So whales don't produce arbitrary sequences of clicks. They instead tend to produce them in one of a relatively limited set of fixed patterns. So on one hand, you have pictographic systems like ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, where every word is associated with a different kind of unique picture, and there aren't actually relationships between them. And on the other hand, you have alphabetic systems like English, where there's a much smaller set of pieces that we call letters that combine to produce all the different words that we see written down. And so one way of thinking about what we're doing in this new paper is showing that sperm whale codas are more like an alphabetic system than a pictographic system, which was kind of the picture that we had before. That all of these different codas that we see are actually built by combining a comparatively simple set of smaller pieces.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend. Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.
When you make decisions for your company, you look for the no-brainers. If you have a lot of mailing to do, Stamps.com is the ultimate no-brainer. Use the Stamps.com mobile app to mail everything you need to keep your business running with up to 89% off USPS and UPS. Make the same no-brainer decision as over 1 million other businesses with Stamps.com. Use code PROGRAM for a special offer. That's Stamps.com, code PROGRAM.